I'm doing something a little different today. I don't normally do TV shows, partly because I don't watch a lot of TV shows, and I wasn't going to review this. It just wasn't something that was on my list, but I'm currently procrastinating reviewing something else. So, on a whim, I just decided I'll do this one instead. So, this is going to be my review of the Amazon original series, The Man in the High Castle, which was released all at once in November, I think, of 2015. It's 10 episodes, about an hour long each. This was the first season. This show is based on the alternate history novel by Philip K. Dick, which springs from the premise that the Allies lost World War II. Somehow, the Japanese and the Germans ended up working together and defeated the Americans, and they took the United States and they basically divided it in half. The Germans, the Nazis, rule over the eastern half, centered in New York City, and the Imperial Japanese rule over the western half, centered in San Francisco. And there is a neutral zone in the middle, in the Midwest. All of this took place before the show started. The action is actually set in 1962, I believe, and it focuses on a generation of people who don't remember what life was like before all this happened, and they are just former Americans living peaceably under foreign rule. However, not everyone is able to live peaceably, and it turns out there is an underground resistance movement. Meanwhile, tensions are growing between the Nazis and the Japanese, and it seems like war is imminent between the two of them. The series, at least this first season, seems to take the main concept of the book and some of the characters and some of the plot lines and run with them. At least that's how it seems to me. Maybe I'm just not remembering the book very well. I read it a couple of years ago. I was really excited to hear that there was going to be a show made out of it, because there's just so much you can do with building that world. The main character is Juliana Crane, who is plunged into this world of the resistance after she witnesses her sister being murdered by the Kempeitai, which is like the Japanese police force, kind of like the Nazi SS, Gestapo. Right before her sister is murdered, she hands her this film. This film is a propaganda device used by the resistance, and there's a whole bunch of them, and they are showing what the world would have been like if the Allies had won the war. So it's actually the history that we know. Juliana, being in possession of this film that her sister has died for, ends up following the trail and having interactions with the resistance and being chased by people. And meanwhile, her boyfriend, Frank, which is such an unfortunate name, he is taken in for questioning by the Japanese, and he's held, and he's in even more trouble because he's part Jewish, and the things that they go through are pretty awful. It's an awful world to be living in. I'm not sure that I can say that I found either of these characters particularly likable. Both of them tend to do things a little impulsively, especially Frank, and that gets them into trouble. And there are just multiple occasions where they do something, or they have a plan to do something, and it's just like, ugh. No, don't do that. You know that's not going to end well. Another main character is Joe Blake, who at first seems to be on one side, and then turns out to be on another, and then he seems to be shifting to another side, and then he shifts back. He is a very conflicted person, undecided about what he wants, and that is something that he struggles with the whole season, and I'm sure it will continue into the next season. There are a lot of characters like that. Actually, most of them are hard to pin down as either good or bad. This is a world that is backwards. Life is completely contrary to the way we know it, and it's not just black and white. Add to that it's a story where there are agents and double crosses and triple crosses, and anytime there's stuff like that, I find it very confusing, and the story, the identities, it is complicated. My favorite character is probably the most complicated of them all, Obergruppenführer John Smith. I know that John Smith doesn't sound like a German name, and Rufus Sewell doesn't play it with a German accent or his natural British accent. He uses an American accent, which is weird, but he is a Nazi who's running some things in New York. I'm not exactly sure what the title Obergruppenführer translates into, but he's in charge of a bunch of people in New York. His character is complex and very interesting. You're so sure that he's bad, and then you see him in a different setting, and he's so normal and charming, and you start to wonder, maybe he's double-crossing the Nazis. Maybe he's actually a good guy. And then he does something horrible, and it's like, whoops, no, he's definitely a bad guy. I was completely wrong. Yeah. But then you feel like, I don't know, maybe he could turn out to be good. I think a lot of this has to do with Rufus Sewell himself, who delivers a fascinating performance, and I am most looking forward to seeing what happens with his character. We left him in a sudden transitional state, plus there is the beginning of an internal conflict involving his son, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where all that goes, where that leads to. The season ended with a cliffhanger, and all of the characters are more conflicted than they were before, which will probably only add to more confusion on my part. And on top of all that, I'm looking for some kind of explanation for that mind-bending last scene that made me question everything I just watched. Unfortunately, although the second season has been okayed, it's probably going to be at least another year before it's released. I understand why. It's an expensive production requiring a lot of time and research and CGI to authenticate the world, and I want them to take the time to make it a great production, but I want to know what happens next, and I want to know soon before I forget everything that happened in the first season. One thing that might be a problem, I'm not sure, is that this is an Amazon show, and we were able to watch it free because we have Amazon Prime. I'm not sure how accessible it is for non-Prime users. I guess maybe you can buy it from Amazon and stream it on your TV even if you don't have the Amazon app. I don't know. Someone more technologically savvy should tell you that. I don't really know. Hopefully, if you want to see it and you don't have Prime, you can find it somehow. I should also give a little content warning. I don't normally do this because, for the most part, what I review doesn't have these things. But I do have a very varied audience, so I do want to let you know that this show does have sexual content, brief nudity, violence, language, disturbing images, but fortunately they do have a little content warning before each episode, so you know it's coming, and you generally can tell when it's going to happen in the show. I don't think I was too surprised by anything, so probably not a show for the kids, but I do recommend it for the visual spectacle, for the story and the characters, and if nothing else, just for a very well done execution of what I find to be a fascinating, intriguing concept. So those are my thoughts on season 1 of The Man in the High Castle. Check it out if you like, and let me know what you think of it. Thanks for watching! Bye!